It is the Soul Finder podcast with Kathy D. Carter. KathyDCarter.com is where you want to go to find out all sorts of things about Kathy, her mission in life, her services that she offers, and an archive of every episode of this podcast we do. And let me say this too. I love how consistent you are, and we've become releasing these. And
we have a lot.
And when they don't get released every week, that's my fault. But anyways.
Yeah, what's going on with that?
I'll tell you later. But I've been looking forward to seeing you because you're one of the few people in the world, and I'm very sincere about this, that I can talk to. Or that I even, not that I can talk to, that I care about talking to.
Mm-hmm. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I
agree.
I'm not
Same way I feel.
I'm not a hear my feelings type, and it's not that I'm maybe I am a jerk, but there's no need. I don't feel a need to do that. But something happened a few weeks ago. We were coming to you from Allen, Texas, suburb of Dallas, and depending on when you're listening to this, you may still remember. It may be fresh. There was a mass shooting at an outlet mall in Allen. And Kathy, I don't know how much you know about where I live.
I don't.
But I live in what I call a badass apartment.
I knew that.
In Allen. And that outlet mall where the shooting happened is literally 0.6 of a mile drive from my apartment.
Oh.
And 0.4 of a mile walk.
Oh.
And the reason I know that is because there's a great trail system in the city, and I walk my dog in those trails, and the trails run right behind
mall.
That mall. So
0.4 miles?
Yeah, it's 0.4 of a mile. And the only reason it takes longer to drive is you have to go around a highway.
Right. So
I'm on the east side of the highway, and the outlet mall's on the west side of the highway.
Okay.
And if you're walking, there's a trail that goes underneath the highway.
Okay, got it.
So you don't have to walk all the way around.
Right.
And to the point where it got to be kind of ridiculous. So the shooting happens at in the afternoon on a Saturday, and the news starts breaking pretty quickly, but it's a Saturday, so it's trickling out to. It's not trickling out. The news is coming out, but people are finding out about it as they tune into the news.
Right.
And so I'm getting text messages left and right because my friends know that I'll walk my dog back there. So it's kind of a legitimate, in a way I thought it was kind of ridiculous because even if I was at that outlet mall, there were about 2,000 people, my guess, that were in that mall. It's an outdoor mall.
Right.
And there were about 2,000 people there. 8 people, unfortunately, lost their lives. And this is kind of the way I am, Kathy. Doing the math, when all these people were texting me asking if I was okay, I'm like, even if I was there, my chances of being shot were not huge. 8 people out of a couple thousand, which is not a normal way to look at that. I'm not going to say it's not a healthy way, but it's not a normal way. A normal person wouldn't look at it and say, well, my odds were good. I mean, it's almost like I'm saying, if you told me 8 people are going to die at this outlet mall today and I really wanted to go, I'd say, I'll take my chances.
And you'd go shopping.
But it impacted me. And it's hard for it not to impact. I'm not an emotional person. I don't look at myself as if you really pull the layers back, I guess I am.
Yes, very much so. But
I'm very practical also. And I got to tell you that, and this is when in the previous episode, I said I may not be proud of this. One of my first reactions was, for only 8 people to lose their lives in that situation, it could have been a lot worse.
Oh, yes.
Could have been a whole lot worse.
Yes. There's no doubt.
My other reaction, and this is where I want to go with you, and there's plenty of other things to talk about this situation. But my other reaction was, the world is an evil place. This world is not designed to be a good place. It's, there's evil in the world, and there's really only so much we can do to eliminate it. And we're never going to eliminate evil. It's part of the world. And hopefully it won't impact you as directly as it's going to impact like those victims. But it's there and it's always going to be there. And I don't think that's pessimistic. I just think that's a fact.
I agree.
And when people have the attitude that the world's out to get them, I completely understand, because you know what? The world is out to get you, and you got to keep it from happening.
Well, that's one way of looking at it. Okay. Explain a little more.
And I'm saying figuratively, the victims in that shooting
Right.
couldn't keep it from happening.
Right.
And there's going to be situations where evil is evil.
Right.
It exists. It's going to happen. If you survived, and we talked about this in a previous episode, if you survive it, you can't let it continue to get you. And when people say the world's out to get me, most of the time that's a figurative type phrase to where customer service or people are trying to scam me, which is all things we've talked about.
Right.
It's not someone pointing a gun and shooting you that you can't avoid. But when you say the world's out to get me, okay, great, the world's out to get me. What can I do to limit the damage? What can I do? And the shooting is something you feel helpless about.
So where were you when it occurred? How did you find out?
I was in my apartment complex. I was in my apartment. And the way I found out, which is it was kind of jarring, was I got a text message from my apartment, from the leasing office, giving us a heads up that there's a good chance we're going to be locked down. Because they didn't have the shooter. And it was so close to where the police were, the management office was preparing us that you're not going to be able to come into the apartment complex or leave it. Mm-hmm. It's gated community. It's a secure place. And I think what I found out later was that the law enforcement was talking about locking down everything they could lock down in that neighborhood. So get a text saying there's an active shooter.
How'd that make you feel?
You know what? It made me feel weird. And this takes us to another thing that happened last night. I wasn't worried about getting shot at all. I'm not worried about dying. Mm-hmm. I didn't think I was going to get shot, but even if I did, I'm not worried about it.
Well, maybe you've just been here and left so many times, it's
maybe
just part of it.
I can't believe I just said maybe to that. That shows you how far I've come since I've met you.
Right.
It made me feel kind of strange.
It had to.
It made me wonder, do I need to go get groceries right now?
Right.
But it was weird that the way I was finding out was through, hey, you're about to be locked down. It was weird to know that it was a very nice day outside, and I was going to take the dog for a walk, and it could have been right there. I really feared for my dog if that was the case more than me, which once again is not a normal.
Yeah, your dog's first.
I'm putting normal in quotes just because, and I think it's healthy. I wish everyone could live the way I do, and not be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
But I also understand that I've got a different situation where I don't have kids. I'm not worried about watching my kids go to prom or get married or anything like that. So I've got a different situation. I did care about the people that were,
of course,
that were there. But the minute I turned the TV on and saw the coverage, I could tell by the way they were walking people out of the place that the shooting was done. Even though they hadn't found the shooter, or they said they hadn't found the shooter. You could tell the way they were very calmly evacuating. They were not worried about a shooter
being on the loose.
Yeah. And so and that's one of the things I don't like about media.
Right.
Is they're being all dramatic about it, and what they were saying was not matching the pictures you were seeing, because you turn on CNN, there's an active shooter, and they haven't caught him. Well, you could tell by the way that law enforcement was evacuating. They may not have told the reporters, we got the shooter, but all I have to do is have eyes and see the way people are walking out that they had the shooter. Right. Now, whether they had him in custody or whether he was shot, they were not worried about another shooter.
Could you all hear the shots at your apartment?
I'll go there later. No, I couldn't.
Oh, okay.
But there's something that happened last night. I don't think my reaction was normal. I don't know what to think about it. I know my reaction wasn't normal. I just don't know what to think about it because it's not that I didn't care, but one of my first reactions was I was supposed to play poker at someone's house in Allen that night. And I texted the guy hosting. I said, hey, you're not canceling the poker game, are you? And he said, why? And I said, well, because there's a shooting. He said, not by me. And I was okay. I just want to make sure that you're not canceling it. So I was concerned about and it wasn't a lot of people look at that as selfish, but I can just tell you, I just wanted
your activity.
I wasn't being selfish. I was just,
you wanted your social life.
They, canceled a hockey game that was going to be at the Allen Event Center playoff game. I think I'm kind of uncomfortable saying it because I know that it's not looked at as right. It's looked at as wrong. I think people overreacted to it. I don't blame them for the most part. I do blame, and I got more upset over the reaction to the shooting than the shooting itself.
The reaction of people?
Of people.
Okay.
Because the way I look at it, and you may think I'm wrong, and it's one of those things where if you think I'm wrong, that's okay.
Yeah.
But you'd be wrong, I'm right.
It. I know. I know how we do this.
And this is one of the things that, there's certain things in life that I have strong opinions about that I think, okay, I leave room, maybe I'm wrong. And there are other things where I don't care what anyone else says. I know I'm right. I'm willing to listen.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I know I'm right. I know I'm right about this.
Okay, what is it?
It bugged the living crap out of me to get on social media within even 6 hours of the shooting, but this happened immediately, and see people that decided to grandstand on social media about the gun issue and decided to make their opinions known. Whether I agreed with their opinion or disagreed, that was not the time to do it. I will admit I kept it to myself. And this is where I do understand. But I kept it to myself. This is where I don't understand. One of my initial thoughts was, because I think every responsible American right now, good American, should be allowed to have a gun. Okay, that's where I stand.
Right.
I don't think we're going to eliminate guns.
Right.
So I want the guns in people that are trained.
Right.
I think you should have a license. I think there's lots of things that
could be done.
The gun control people want that I do agree with. I think you should be responsible. You should have to be trained. I do agree with that. And one of my first thoughts was, since I knew that something had happened to the shooter because of the way they were evacuating, I was hoping that a citizen with a gun shot the shooter.
Oh.
So that we could eliminate the debate of, there's too many guns. Well, you know what? A good guy with a gun got the bad guy.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But I kept that I didn't put that on social media. And I did find out later, and still not confirmed, they're not saying this, but evidently there was someone, through what I've heard, which take that for what you want.
Right.
There was a citizen that was shooting at the shooter.
Oh.
But the citizen's not the one that got him. A cop got him. But it bothered me to watch people on social media on each side of the issue try and debate the issue rather than recognize 8 people just lost their lives.
Yes. That's the thing of it is, well, they got triggered. I mean, I can understand how they get triggered on a big event like that, but in all empathetic type reaction, it would be to be in silence and reverence for the people.
Yeah. Well, like me. Yeah, I got triggered, but I kept it to myself.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with having an opinion.
Right.
But there's a time and place to let that opinion known.
Right.
And that was not the time.
Right.
Or the place. And then it really bothered me to see this. A lot of those same people on social media, this one particular person may be listening, so I don't want to completely call this person out to where it's obvious who I'm talking about. But made a post basically saying, I can't do this without saying, now I'm scared to shop. And then the very next post, because there was a big concert in town that night, the very next person by that same person that's afraid to go shopping was having a great time at this great concert. And I wanted to reply, oh, so you're afraid to go shopping, but putting yourself in a crowded arena you're not afraid of that.
At a concert.
And so obviously you're just grandstanding. You're just taking the moment. It bothered me more than the shooting. It bothered me to turn on CNN.
Right.
And there's a congressman named Keith Self who represents this district, who went on as a guest on CNN to talk about the district and talk about the people that live here and everything. And the anchor tried to engage him. He's a Second Amendment guy. And she tried to engage him in a debate about gun control. And to his credit, he said, look, I'm not here to talk about that right now.
Good for him.
He said, I think everyone knows how I feel, but now's not the time to do it. Obviously, you and I are going to disagree, and you want me to debate. I'm not going to. This is not the time to do it.
Good for him.
Yeah. And I actually had the opportunity to run into one of his assistants that week, and I made a point of going up to her and telling her how impressed I was. And I would have been impressed even if I didn't agree with him, even if I was on the other side of the issue.
Right. For him not to discuss it at that point in time. That was no. And he was a good role model.
Mm-hmm. So it did impact me, but the shooting itself, and I don't know, you can tell me this is kind of what I want to talk to you about, is I couldn't tell whether I was masking how much the shooting impacted me by letting the other stuff impact me more than it should have.
Mm-hmm. That's a good awareness
and
of a possibility.
Yeah, and it is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of the people, specifically one a little boy lost his entire family. Right. And that's just, it's unfair. It's incredibly sad. I know that kid's going to have a ton of support though.
How old was he?
Like 6.
Wow.
And I lost siblings and mom and dad. And I can only think that he's gonna end up being okay because of the support that he's gonna have. The other thing that really bothers me is the failure to recognize there's evil in the world.
Right.
And we can't make it perfect.
Well, we can't make it perfect, and that's kind of been what most of my clients are what I call warriors. And a warrior's main mission on this planet is to help keep the balance of the dark and light in balance. And then we have the, as you're calling it, evil that exists that will never change. As I believe it today, that's what I believe, that there is an evil force in the universe that will never change or evolve or raise its frequency. Whereas when we have the light and the dark on the planet Earth, lots of times the dark is evolving to the light. However, the world we're in right now, the warriors are having a very hard time because they can't remember who they are. They can't get in their strength and their balance to be able to do the work they came to do. And unfortunately, the evil is able to pull the dark into it more sometimes, and they gain greater control, and our balance is way off. It's way off right now.
But it hasn't always been?
Yes, but not, I don't know if it's increasing or not.
Okay.
But with the release of AI, it probably is. Because we can't really battle that.
The other thing that bothers me, and once again, this makes me not normal. Not normal because I feel this way, and really not normal because I'm willing to say it in a microphone on a podcast. My radar is way up. It always has been for insincere gratitude, insincere compassion. And this is really bad because I think the people I'm talking about, I think they have good intentions. I really do. But I don't think it's as genuine.
Right. And you can tell that difference because, see, you're an empath.
Well, and it's unfair of me. It really is unfair of me to look at people like this. But, for instance, I think we've talked about it when I was in the hospital. And people would send me just the prayer emoji on Facebook. I looked at that unfairly probably as insincere. That's just someone, going through the motions. There's a bunch of t-shirts now that are being sold that say Alan Strong.
As a result of the shooting?
Yeah. And supposedly it's going to help the victims' families.
Oh.
It's charity. And I think the intentions are good.
Yeah.
But to me, like, this is hard for me because I don't want to completely dismiss it. But I'll use me as an example. When I was coaching Special Olympics, I would post pictures on social media. And the thing I was very, 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 very overly concerned about was I didn't want the social media post to come across as, hey, look at Frito. He's so cool and he's so good that he's willing to help the special.
The ego. The ego attention.
The reason I was doing it was to hopefully encourage other people.
Right.
That, hey, that looks like fun. And wanting them to get involved. And I knew that I was walking a line of, okay, how much of this looks like, look at me, look at me, look at me, and how much of it was having the impact that I hoped it had.
Right.
And I promise you, I can guarantee you that there were people that during a state basketball tournament that were friends with me on social media. There were people that said, look at Frito grandstanding.
Well, sure, because your ability to, here's a possibility of what happened. So your ability to be working with the special needs triggered them because they were jealous. And so they may have said something like that because they have to balance the how they feel.
I'm not disagreeing. I never looked at it that way.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, usually it's jealousy.
Yeah, that makes sense, but I never looked at it that way. I just looked at it because I know the way I look at I'm skeptical of, it's really weird. I'm optimistic and I'm very positive in a lot of ways, but I'm very skeptical in other ways.
We're going to get you balanced.
And I know, the world's not balanced.
No, it's not. And you have to be skeptical because you'll be scammed all the time if you're not.
But I am skeptical of people that post, look what I've done and look what I'm doing for charity. And my thought about Alan Strong or Boston Strong or whenever anything like that happens is, oh, you weren't strong before this?
Right.
And I know it's a vehicle to possibly raise money. But I'll just I don't need to have a t-shirt.
Right.
To give money to a good cause.
Right. It's just one of the ways of our customs. It's one of the ways of doing things. And yes, lots of times it's the ego that needs the recognition. Oh, I'll start this. And look at me, I'll be good.
Well, and this will take us down another path real quick. I am truly of the belief, and I know I'm wrong about this, that there's way too many nonprofits out there and too many charities.
Well, how else do you avoid income tax?
And that's my point. And I know that's, and
yeah, where will we go from here?
I think a lot of people start these nonprofits for their own ego to make themselves feel better about themselves. And there's nothing wrong with feeling better about yourself, but feel better about yourself. And if you're genuine about the charity that you're starting, or be genuine. Just be genuine.
It appears to me that lately you have run into a lot of ingenuine people.
Yeah, or I'm skeptical. I'm not skeptical.
Well.
But I also know this, and Kathy, I know this. I talk about special needs.
Right.
I'm passionate about special needs. I'm not going to start a charity because you know what? There's plenty out there that are going to be better at raising money than I am. So why would I start a charity? Why would I try and raise funds when there's already people doing it and I'll help them do it because they're good at it. I'm not. But then there's other people who have this, and maybe the same passion, but frame of mind, well, if I'm just helping someone else, I'm not getting credit for it.
Well, see, that's the ego.
Yeah.
That's back to the ego.
And that's kind of what I'm saying, yeah.
That's ego-driven because everyone goes through that evolution as they evolve their soul, that the ego has to be recognized. And a lot of times these are people that are very, very, very insecure at the core. And
now I will tell you this, once again, make me not normal, and I may have to talk you into this, but the way I believe about guns and Second Amendment, I think I'm a very common sense, and there's lots of Second Amendment people that probably think that I'm way too liberal, and there's definitely liberals that think I'm way too conservative about this. But when it comes to gun ownership, like I said, and this shooting, to me, is an example of where I stand, is I want good people carrying guns. I want good people that are trained, that are responsible, that care enough to get the permit, that care enough to continue going to the range and learning about their weapon. I bought a gun. I don't have it anymore. And when I bought my gun and I got my license to carry, I also bought a year-long membership at the gun range because I was going to be a responsible gun owner. Then I got thrown in the hospital, and that money was a complete waste. But
they didn't refund that to you.
I didn't ask. But I was going to the range. I was learning to use the gun. And the reason I sold it and got rid of it was because I knew that in this climate, even if I use the gun properly to defend myself, I'm still going to have to defend myself in court. It's going to open up a whole can of worms that I wouldn't want to deal with anyway. So what's the point of owning the gun if I'm not going to use it when I'm justified to use it? And the way I feel about law and order, the way it should be administered, I would use the gun in a situation where the rest of the world was not ready for my type of justice. Like if I saw someone stealing my wheel covers, I'm using my gun.
Right.
You're going to steal from me, I'm going to use my gun, and the world is not ready for that type of justice. But, so, no, saying all that, I want gun owners that are responsible.
That's a little idealistic.
Is it?
Well, hell yes.
To want gun owners to be responsible?
No, not that, but to think that we could have a world where that was the case.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's what I meant.
But, thinking that through, if I was going to start a nonprofit, having a gun under those circumstances, the circumstances I'm talking about, is not cheap. The gun is not cheap. The gun costs money.
Right.
The shooting range membership costs money. Practice target ammo costs money.
Mm-hmm.
Storage for the gun properly costs money. If you're going to do it the right way,
yeah,
it's an expensive thing to do.
It is.
And so my charity was going to be raising money so poor people could have gun ownership also.
Oh.
Because the way that my system would work, you're going to have some cash to own a gun.
And you don't think there's going to be anyone out there that's going to give the gun to the evil person, as you call them?
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt.
Okay, so how have you solved anything?
I haven't solved anything because you're not going to solve evil. But I've got more people prepared to deal with evil.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You're
building the forces.
And, it's a shallow argument, I know.
Well, it's not, because gun ownership, people should be trained, because so many people I know had a gun thinking it provided them security, but if you don't know how to use it, and you don't know how to use it in an emergency situation, you're done for. They're going to take that gun from you and shoot you.
And by the way, and this is where I know it's a shallow, but how many mass shootings do you see at gun ranges?
Well, you don't, do you?
No, you don't. You know why? Because the bad guy knows everyone has a gun there. And he's not going to get a lot of people before he gets killed himself. Okay? Shootings happen at places where the shooters know no one has a gun. Schools, malls. And I know
I had never thought of that.
I know that's shallow, but if you're a mass shooter, you don't go to a gun range or everyone's going to shoot you the minute you shoot someone else.
Well, that wouldn't be very smart, would it?
Okay, so you take, yeah, and I may have been too influenced by a character on TV, and I know that you're going to laugh at me for just calling him a character on TV because you and I are old enough to know who Archie Bunker is.
Oh, yes.
But there's an episode of, and this is another thing about society, is that there was a show in the 70s called All in the Family, for those of you younger than the age of like 45 maybe. And the show was a very political sitcom where the star of the show was Archie Bunker, and he was a very conservative, racist, but innocent racist. He was a great character.
Right.
I mean, he was really a very complicated character because he really had a heart of gold, but he was kind of a jackass too. But one of the episodes was, they showed back in the day on the news, like the station manager would do an editorial. And this one particular editorial, the station manager was talking about gun control. Now keep in mind, this show was done 50 years ago, and all the topics they bring up in that show 50 years ago, still the same stuff we're arguing about now. The economy, gun control, and immigration were the three main topics on that show.
Wow.
50 years ago. And we're arguing about the same exact stuff.
We haven't progressed very fast, have we?
Well, we've progressed, but that's what convinces me there's always going to be evil, and we're always going to have certain issues that will never get solved, because there's certain people that don't want the issues to get solved because they thrive on the issues. But this particular editorial, the station manager was all in favor of gun control and eliminating guns. And the way these editorials worked back then is he invited a viewer to come in and give a rebuttal to his point. And Archie, who was a Second Amendment guy, gave his rebuttal. And one of the things he said in his rebuttal that I was like 6 years old.
Yeah, I was going to say you couldn't have been very old.
But it was very logical.
Uh-huh.
He came on TV and he said, we have this issue with skyjackings. And back in the 70s, you had a bunch of, you had a handful of hijackings where armed people would take control of a plane.
Right.
And Archie said, the way you solve these hijackings isn't to eliminate guns, because you're not going to be able to do that. The way you solve them is you issue everyone a gun when they get on the plane. And then the skyjacker doesn't have an advantage.
Good point.
And I'm like, 6-year-old Frida was like, that makes sense.
Oh, 6-year-old.
So my mission is, let's get as many good, responsible people
having guns
with guns as possible. And that's extreme, but I don't think it's anywhere. It's just as extreme as thinking that we can get rid of all the guns.
Right.
And yeah, you're going to have, there's going to be collateral damage, but there's also, it's not going to be perfect.
Right.
So if you're going to try and solve something, or just understand something we're going to have to deal with.
Yes.
Now, what happened to me last night, Kathy?
Yes. What was this?
Very strange. I'm laying in my bed around 10 o'clock, watching TV with the dog.
On the borrowed internet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good job. I live next to a place called Top Golf, which is a big entertainment venue, which is, like I said, 0.6 of a mile from where the shooting happened. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, but gunshots come out again.
Oh, really?
And to the point where the gunshots were going off for a good 3 or 4 minutes.
3 or 4 minutes?
Before I started recording this. And I don't know if you're going to be able to hear this or not. Can you hear that?
I've been doing this for the last 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah.
So what you're hearing is a fountain, which is my pool.
Right. But I can hear the shots. Just kind of regular.
Yeah. And to the point where I laid in bed for 3 or 4 minutes before I did anything.
Right.
And
that's unusual. That's not normal.
No,
that's not normal.
No, it's not.
That is
someone
not
shooting
normal.
outside, no big deal. But then I got up and I went to my balcony. Couldn't see anything, but you could definitely hear them. And it was loud and it was regular. Then it stopped for 30 seconds and then it started up again. And I'll tell you what I did. Once again, not scared that I'm going to get shot. I stayed on my balcony. Then I went back into my apartment and I checked social media to see if anyone was reporting the shooting.
Right.
And no one said anything about it. So then I downloaded an app that's a police scanner app.
So you could.
So I could hear.
How come you didn't call the cops?
If there's any police activity. Here's why I didn't call the cops. Because I'm not the only one hearing it. I mean, I would have just been one of 100 people calling the cops because there's a shooting at Top Golf. I mean, I'm not going to be breaking them any news to them. And I did think about that very briefly, and then quickly realized if there's a shooting going on.
You assumed that there was many calling.
But I downloaded a police scanner so I could hear the police department, and there wasn't any
chatter
on the police scanner. Then I texted someone I know that lives in the apartments that I live in, and I said, "Hey, did you hear that? Are those fireworks?" Because I didn't want to.
Right.
I knew it was a shooting. I didn't really think it was fireworks.
Right.
But I didn't want to be the panic guy that's letting everyone know that there's a shooting. Turns out, I find out this morning, I just went to sleep.
Because it quit, right?
Maybe not normal,
it
but
quit?
Yeah.
The shots quit.
Made one final check of social media and then went to...
There's nothing much you could do at that point.
But I woke up at like 4 o'clock this morning.
Right.
And I checked social media, and that's when I put 2 and 2 together. The Allen High School graduation was at the stadium, which is like right across the street from my apartments, and they ended it with a fireworks show.
So it was fireworks.
But at that point, I'd start analyzing. Well, actually, I analyzed it before that.
You couldn't see the fireworks in the sky?
No, because I live on the inside
part.
And
you couldn't see out.
And before I went to bed, I was like, is this normal? That I'm just going to sleep when there's an active shooter outside?
Well, you don't go out to see if you can find them, so...
That's the other thing.
Yes?
I really shouldn't be saying all this stuff. When I turned on CNN the day of the shooting...
Right.
And I could see the way people are being evacuated.
Right.
The CNN anchor, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. CNN is a worldwide news network. This is Allen, Texas. If you live in the area, the police are asking, please don't go by the mall. I'm like, you're talking to a worldwide audience, but you're talking specifically to a speck on... But
that's the drama.
Here's my thing. You don't tell me not to do something.
Right.
I had no intention of going over there, but the minute that woman on CNN told me don't go there, I got right in my truck.
I thought you couldn't leave your apartment
No, they never
building.
locked us down.
They didn't lock you down.
They're preparing for it, but no. And so I get in my truck and I drive right over there, only because no one tells me I can't do something.
You do have a trigger on that we do need to work on, but were you even able to get in?
Yes, there's no traffic at all. There's always, you've been in that area?
Yes.
There's always traffic. There was no traffic.
And you were able to drive in?
I didn't drive into the parking lot, no.
Oh.
But I was able to drive.
By.
As a matter of fact, it may as well have been like 2 o'clock in the morning. There was zero.
It was empty, huh?
Yeah. Usually at that intersection, you have to stop through at least 2 cycles of a stoplight.
At least.
But no, right through. No problem at all.
Wow.
Yeah, but you don't tell me not to do something.
Yeah, that's an issue. You know that. That's an issue.
So last night, I was about 90% sure there's an active shooter outside. I just went to sleep.
Well, it's a good thing, because it was just a graduation. Fireworks.
Oh, it's always a pleasure talking to you.
You too.